Welcome to the Legal CFO.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show where clarity meets profitability. This is the Legal CFO with Ryan Kimler, the founder of Net Profit CFO. If you're a law firm owner looking to get a handle on your finances, grow your bottom line, and finally take control of your numbers, you're in the right place. Each episode, Ryan breaks down the business side of law with straightforward strategies to help your firm run smarter, earn more, and scale with confidence. I'm Sean O'Connor, and today Ryan and I are tackling a question a lot of law firms wrestle with at some point. Can your firm actually afford to grow? Or are you about to create a bigger financial problem by trying? That's an interesting dynamic. Hey, Ryan, good to see you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and very excited to dive in today.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, right? It's like, what do you mean afford to grow? Why do so many law firm owners assume growth is always a good thing, even when, finances might not support it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is there's so many different factors that you could look at and assess. And, we can definitely dive into the details of those of this episode, but it's not always an easy decision. And it's not always clear, right? I think there's some pros and some cons. But if we don't have a clear financial picture and know where we really stand, I don't think that we're ready to answer the question of can we afford to grow or not. So you've got to get to the point where you've got good financial clarity and a good picture on your numbers. And sometimes that can be tough to judge.
Yeah, you think of the flip of that, like, can I afford not to grow? That would be the go fight win kind of response. Like if you're not growing, you're shrinking. But from your experience, what are the clearest signs that a firm is actually ready?
Yeah, so I think let's list a couple. So number one, your pricing is a set structure, and you know that you're priced well. So you're not underpricing things in the market just to get work. You're priced adequately. You're competitive in the market space, maybe even towards the top end of pricing. You've really got that nailed down, and you've had great clients because that great pricing is really going to help you as you grow, because that is going to tie directly into your margin or profits. So I think that's item number one is we've got to be really clear on what practice areas we're in and what our offering is, and we have to be priced right. I would say that is factor number one.
Okay.
Factor number two, I would go to what have the financials been over the last few months?
Oh.
Are we generating consistent profits? And I also like to look at things on a percentage basis. So real easy, quick example here. If we've got $10,000 in profits from, let's say, last month, and the law firm did $20,000 in revenue, we're at a 50% profit margin, right? That would be super high, right? Yeah. But do that math and figure out what is our profit margin percentage. Because if you're in the single digits, if that means 8% profits or even low double digits, let's say like 12% profits, we're probably not in a good position to grow. It is going to take money to grow.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're that close to break even, you don't want to make those additional investments and go below the 0% mark, right? Because that would mean we would have a net loss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So I think that's the second factor is what have we been doing the last few months? And what's that profit percentage? What does the firm look like?
Mm-hmm. Is there a seasonality to certain practices? Because you mentioned a few months, that's like one quarter, right? And to me, that seems like a short amount of time by which to judge. Maybe it was a blip, if you will.
Sure.
Of positive or negative even, right? Like, it was a tough quarter.
Yep. Yeah, I think those things are important to evaluate as well. I think for the most part, for the clients that we deal with, we don't see a ton of seasonality, right? I think family law, criminal law, estate planning, those types of areas, right?
Pretty steady.
Yep, pretty steady. There's not necessarily a oh, December's rolled around, I got to go get my estate plan done, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a taxes deadline. Um, so yeah, pretty steady for the
Good to
most
know.
part. But I think that's a great point. If you know that there is seasonality in the type of law that you practice specifically, that is a great thing to weigh.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at previous years can also kind of give you that picture, right? Obviously, if you are seasonal and we're getting ready to go into a slow period, probably not a good time to hire and start spending more money,
Right.
right? So definitely a good thing to look at.
What about, I mean, you mentioned, some of your sort of simple math with the percentages, in terms of profit. Are there additional signs that would indicate that a firm's ready to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think have a good look at how much cash do we have on hand,
Mm,
right? That's a great thing to look at, and you can kind of, again, there's a little bit of math here, but let's have a look and judge that in a couple of ways. So number one, if we kept going the way that we're going right now with our current expenses, again, let's just easy math, $10,000 of expenses a month,
sure.
$30,000 in the bank. We've got 3 months, right? So kind of
Yeah,
have a
like
look.
3 months reserves there for,
Yep. Yep.
got
So kind of have a look at it from that perspective. And you might not be at 3 months reserves. That's okay. Obviously, what you have in expenses is going to be different for every firm, but obviously the higher your expense number gets, the more cash you've got have on hand to get to 3 months, right? So
Mhm.
that can be, depending on your expense load, can be a big undertaking. Um, but then let's also look at if we were to set aside some money, like again, when I think growth, yes, it could be go out and get more cases, and maybe your firm has capacity already, but a lot of times I think about making that next hire. And I think that's what a lot of firms are probably thinking about too. Because if you had the capacity to go get more cases and handle them, you would probably just do that, right? I
Yeah.
think if that is the road you're going down, let's look at how much money can we set aside, maybe for additional marketing, if that's an area that you need help, right?
Hmm.
Outside of how much money should we keep in to cover expenses. And then if you're looking at, making the hiring decision, how many months of payroll and expenses do we have for this new employee that we could take out of the bank and kind of set aside? Because obviously, even if you're hiring an experienced attorney, when they come over to your firm, they're not going to be running at full speed day one.
Oh, right. Yeah, good point.
So there's definitely a ramp up time here, right? And again, even if they're super experienced, there's just a time to get adjusted to the new firm. It seems like each firm that we work with has a few different ways that they do things, even if they're in the same practice area, different ways of billing, different systems. So, I think that's important to look at too is, how many months could we comfortably take out of the bank account, to pay this next person that we're looking at bringing on.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. What have you seen in your experience? Like, where do the firms go wrong, or make a mistake or act too quickly, kind of a thing?
Yep. So a couple different areas. Number one could be what I just talked about and not really being prepared profitability wise and having enough cash on hand.
Hmm.
Um, the other way could be just not being ready to really onboard that next hire and have the time to spend with them to really get them going and get them fired up, right? Get
Interesting. Yeah.
them ramped on, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's an interesting conflict there too, right? Because the firm's going like gangbusters. Everybody's billable to the extent that they can be. Support staff's busy. It's time to
yep,
add somebody. Let's do that. But then everybody's so in the weeds. It's hard to. I mean, that
yep.
speaking of the fee structure having, being in place, what is the onboarding structure that you might need in place to take that on? Because everybody's already got a full-time job, right?
Yep. And how do we, successfully transition cases too, right? Because
Mm,
assuming, you're the owner and maybe you want to bring on an attorney to take some cases off of your plate, right?
yeah.
Potentially so that you could work in some other area of the business
Hmm.
that could be in generating more cases, that could be just in management, could be just in the
Vacation.
sales, vacation. Yep. Consultations. Yep. There's a whole long list of things it could be,
Yeah.
right? Um, but then, really anticipating and having enough time set aside to, again, transition cases.
Yeah.
And it takes attorneys time to get up to speed on cases, right? So sometimes just your anticipation of how quickly that could go, I find that sometimes firms underestimate that timeline,
Right.
and so that's one side of it. Another side of it is I find that firms underestimate how long it might take to actually find and bring in the right candidate, especially in the market today. It does not surprise me if you're looking for experienced legal talent to bring them in. It does not surprise me if that's a 6-month process.
Wow.
From day one, we put together the listing of what we're looking
Yeah.
for, and then that could be different if you're working with a recruiting agency. But if you're trying to do it on your own, um, again, it does not surprise me in the environment that we're in that could take 6 months before
Hmm.
you have that next person hired. And so being able to anticipate that, being able to anticipate having work for them, right, when they get there, day one, and just how long that process might actually take are a few different ways that I've seen recently, that firms just kind of miss
Yeah.
on
Oh, yeah.
hires.
That's interesting too, because like, I mean, let's just say it's a 6-month process to find the right fit and bring them on board. That's going to be another few months of ramp up potentially. And then, I mean,
Yep.
the good, I mean, one angle to look at that too is that, okay, well, our finances are moving in the right direction. And if we know or we think this new hire is going to take 6 months to find it's like to begin to start that process could be also,
Yep.
so they're kind of moving on parallel tracks.
That's
So
right.
that you got enough money in the bank when the time comes to finally kind of pull the trigger on a hire.
Yep.
Huh.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, anymore, I'm telling my clients and the firms that we work with, if you're an owner and you have 20 hours of legal work a week on your plate, that you would be, willing to hand off to someone on your staff, that's the time to start looking to do that hiring process. Because
Okay.
by the time we get to 20, or another 20 weeks or 24 weeks down the road, right?
Hmm.
You've probably added more hours to that 20 hours a week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Assuming that you're, generating work and that's still going well, right?
Yeah.
But if you're really in a growth mindset, you're going to have more than 20 hours a week on your plate, a
Down
few
the road.
months down the road, probably approaching a full-time really position for a legal candidate.
Hmm. Well, speaking of capacity and of course the illusion of growth or an ability to grow, I guess, how does a firm separate, real capacity to grow versus, you know, just having work coming in?
Sure. Yeah. So real capacity to grow, again, I think we've got to look at our numbers, right?
Mhm.
And what can we afford? Because sometimes, there is that, well, we are starting to grow here and we would really like to make the jump and make that next hire. But affordability wise, like you're just not there, right? And especially with some higher, more experienced legal positions, we're definitely talking into the mid 6 figures, right? For
Yeah.
a lot of these hires. So your next hire is not always, inexpensive. I think it's a great investment. And so, real capacity to hire, again, we've really got to assess our financial situation, look at what's coming in the door, and also look at, what's our true real capacity today with the firm that we have, and have we filled it? Because if not, right, then why are we jumping to make that next hire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so there
Interesting.
is there is a very interesting difference there, for
Yeah.
sure.
A lot to think about. What about, I know, you've been in this business a long time. Do you have an example? Obviously, you can't name names, but, a firm where, they tried to grow before it was really financially ready. And then, what was the fallout?
Sure. Yeah. So, and I think what's really important too, the example firm that I've got is it's really important to have expectations clear as well.
Hmm.
And so, in this set of circumstances, we had a law firm that did family law and criminal defense. And the main partner that I was working with ran the criminal defense side and was really looking for a partner to come in and run the family law side. And went through quite a search. He had felt like we really found the right partner. And this lawyer had been on her own for a long period of time, generating her own work at rates that were actually lower than the current firm's rates that she was coming over to. And, the amount of work that the partner that I was working with really expected her to generate just didn't end up happening in the first few months that she was there. And there was a really, really big gap actually between what was expected and what actually got delivered as far as work that was generated. And so, that really put the firm in a tight position.
Yeah.
And especially since our expectation of what work was going to be generated was factored into what we were paying her as a salary, that really put the firm in a tight position. I think we set the firm up well. We had good reserves, right? And I think that enabled us to, give it a little more of a chance and a little longer of a runway than what we could have otherwise before, we had to make a shift and pivot what we were paying her.
Yeah.
But I definitely see that as a situation where if we had not been set up that way, it could have been, from bad and didn't meet expectations to disastrous.
A disaster really derailed things for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with the just a couple minutes we have left, right? Like, in a sense, to avoid what the scenario you just described. Like once the financial foundation is strong, what's your advice to listeners? In terms of like the smartest step they could take to grow without creating new financial problems? Because it's obviously a limit to how much cash reserves someone's going to be able to accumulate or stockpile.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there with the first part, right? You do have to have the financials in good order and have a good picture there. And then the next thing that I would say is, again, do some deep due diligence when you're making that big hire, right? Don't be afraid to take on, multiple interviews. Don't take the first candidate, that pops up, right? And really be on the same page for expectations, right? I go back to that story that I just shared. I think because we set expectations up front and we said, look, we expect you to do X.
Yeah.
That allowed us to go back later and she understood why her salary was changing, right?
Yeah. Just good communication and transparency is just good for everyone.
That's right. That's it. Good due diligence, good transparency, good communication, being on the same page. Those things are all really, really important. And then when you get them started, what's really key that I didn't point out is obviously we were tracking the numbers from day one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And really, really be in depth, track those first 90 days so that you know where they stand compared to where you maybe expected them to be or where you want them to be. Maybe they exceed expectations. Yeah. But really track the progress.
That's awesome. And also, I love that idea too, because then let's assume this is not going to be your last hire, right? And so you can kind of iterate and refine your system. And so that's
absolutely.
That's great. Well, listen, man, great talking to you. We're out of time, but I appreciate your expertise and your point of view. And I know we'll talk again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You bet. That's it for today's episode of the Legal CFO. If you're thinking about growing your law firm, but want to make sure your finances can actually support it, Ryan Kimler and the team at Net Profit CFO can help you make that decision with clarity and confidence. Visit their website, netprofitcfo.com, to learn more, explore resources, or book a profit growth call. Thanks for listening. And, as always, be sure to, leave us a thumbs up, maybe leave a review, subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode. I'm Sean O'Connor. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.